So now we're going to be, for a few minutes, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin versus blockchain, if the two are the same thing, where they're going and diverging, and what to expect next. Let me see if I can wave the guy down. Are the mics on? Testing?
Microphone check.
Test.
Good. Did that with a
Check.
wave of hand. Cool. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, I'll go ahead and throw a question or two, but then I'll also let the audience ask. So the first sort of question for you guys is, I guess what is a really basic one? What is the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain? I know it's broad, but if you keep it simple, I want to see the diversity of answers, which is what happens when you ask multiple people the same question like this.
Okay, sure. I'll kick it off. My name is Toon Vase. I'm the head of research at Brave New Coin. And Brave New Coin, we're a data company and also have a news division. We're trying to be like the Bloomberg of the cryptocurrency space. Prior to that, I was working on Wall Street for about 8 to 10 years. Started out at Bear Stearns right before the financial collapse. And then I was a VP at JP Morgan and then a few other financial companies, mostly in risk analysis, working with quants. My background is in financial engineering. So to the question, the difference between Bitcoin and the blockchain. To me, there is no difference. In my view, there is only one blockchain, and that is the Bitcoin blockchain. And it was created to do one specific purpose, in my opinion. And it does it really, really well. It basically created a valuable message transfer across the world, a permissionless way to send value in the digital age. And so far, that's been its only real application and its only uses of Bitcoin, which a lot of people frown upon, are basically used for in ways that make it difficult to use the current financial system, which is why you hear all these things about, well, the Silk Road and then some of the other activities that people don't approve of. And the reason is because people are kind of forced to use Bitcoin because they can't just go to a bank. So I'm not going to take up all the time, but to me, blockchain is Bitcoin. It's a proof-of-work system that you need to create a blockchain, and a competing proof-of-work system will not be able to compete with Bitcoin. And if it's not a proof-of-work system, I don't really consider it a blockchain, in my opinion.
Cool.
So my name is Scott Bambasino. I work for a company called Alpha Point. And since 2013, we've been powering over 20 exchanges around the globe in 16 countries. So exchanges are the on-ramps and off-ramps to the Bitcoin highway. Recently, we have also been moving in the direction of providing permission to blockchains, and that has to do with our underlying protocol that we call StreamCore. What I think is happening in the space is you could really see a geographic division. On the West Coast, you see pure Bitcoin companies that are looking to disintermediate, disrupt, and create new revenues. On the East Coast, you see people that are less interested in Bitcoin as a token or a currency or a digital bearer asset. And what they're interested in is back office efficiencies. And so they believe with a shared distributed ledger that they'll be able to create efficiencies that aren't there currently today. And today what we see is siloed databases that need to be reconciled and are prone to human error, where what has happened in the past is you've had databases trying to act like messaging systems and messaging systems trying to act like databases, and neither of that works very well. And so the belief is that we can have a shared distributed ledger to create efficiencies in the back offices. And I think putting it in that context helps also with the big B versus the little b.
Sorry, Scott, can you just define bearer asset for people in the audience? Because you use the term, I'm not sure everybody knows what that is, because they've kind of been removed from the financial system.
Sure. So a bearer asset is just like a dollar bill in your pocket. So if I had that dollar bill, regardless of who had it before me, I have it, it's mine. If I give it to you and it's now in your pocket, you're the bearer of that asset. It's in your pocket. It is yours.
Cool. Let's get back. If we can get Aldo and then Jay.
Aldo Roscoso. I'm the CEO, Chief Developer, and founder of Align Commerce. So essentially, Align Commerce is a way for businesses to send and receive funds in over 60 countries. So we see Bitcoin, the blockchain, in the public setting as the yin and yang. They are inextricably, they are linked. So we see them as codependent, and as I think one that needs the other. This is specifically for public blockchains. But if you actually look at what we're trying to do, so Align Commerce is trying to pioneer combo chains, essentially a way for public and private consortium blockchains to speak with each other. I think it's very, very early. I mean, when we started the company over 2 years ago, we were one of the main proponents of the blockchain use case. So Align uses the blockchain as a settlement rail for payments. We don't use Bitcoin. So Bitcoin merely is a tokenization system. We believe that the next evolution of change really is combining the powers, of all of these public blockchains with those of the private ones, and that's where we're headed.
My name is Jay Kwan. I'm the technical co-founder of Tendermint, and Tendermint is a blockchain platform company. So I'll just go into Bitcoin versus blockchain right now. The difference, well, Bitcoin is a blockchain. It was the first blockchain application. What Bitcoin is and why it's interesting is because it's a decentralized ledger that is secure despite attacks from within. It's a Byzantine fault-tolerant distributed application. It's the first of its kind. We've had distributed databases before, but nothing that was Byzantine fault-tolerant. Byzantine just means, arbitrary malicious actors. And Bitcoin was the first application that showed a BFT distributed ledger can run in the wild. It's still running today, despite people trying to attack it. All right, so blockchain is an umbrella term that refers to Bitcoin as well as non-Bitcoin BFT distributed ledgers. That's how I see it. And we've created Tendermint. We've created an algorithm that can compete with Bitcoin in terms of security, and it's actually even faster, potentially more secure, and more scalable. And we're offering that as a platform so that anyone can build blockchain applications, not just cryptocurrencies, but any ledger application, all the applications that you saw on the screen before.
Cool. So I'll ask one more question, and then we'll take some audience questions so we can get some participation. So why do you think financial institutions, the large firms, are, because before they weren't even allowed to talk about it publicly, but why do you think they're going towards blockchain, non-Bitcoin applications?
I think it's all about, it's a game of efficiency now. They're seeing that, if you actually look at the big trends, it's all about saving in fees. If you look at a transaction, an FI with a very high volume transaction model, going into these private and consortium-based blockchains allows them to really cut out their own middleman. So they're seeing real-time settlements. They're seeing, in process, game-changing, technology that allows them to essentially cut their own middleman out.
One thing I would add to that is, I think with blockchain technologies, and a lot of this is still getting vetted out, we're in such early stages. There's just a few POCs out there, and everybody's still trying to figure out exactly how this is going to work. But one thing you can think about is, right now with siloed databases, you got to grant access to that, and you give up a bit of privacy. With blockchains, if you have a shared distributed ledger, you can share your identification while protecting your privacy. And so you're able to write and read to a blockchain in a permission type setting while still maintaining your privacy. And I think that will be a big value add.
Cool. Let me ask one for the two guys in the middle on Bitcoin to keep it going, unless you wanted to answer that.
No, let's go on.
So with Bitcoin, there's been a lot of news, there's a lot of fluctuations, there's a lot of attention, not all of it positive. Do you think there's but there's also every other week there's a story about a renaissance, about some new element that's being used. What do you see Bitcoin doing in the next sort of 3 to 5 years as, sort of the other side of blockchain is taking off? Is it still relevant?
I don't think Bitcoin is going away. It is designed so that it will last a while, and the reward schedule of Bitcoin makes it so that it'll be secure and functional for a while, as long as the internal governance, there's a lot of different parties attacking Bitcoin and trying to fork it, make it different than it is. Like there's the whole blockchain size debate happening. As long as Bitcoin can survive and whether it innovates or changes or not doesn't really matter. As long as it survives, it'll continue to be a cryptocurrency. I don't think it's going to be the foundational platform that people want it to be. I think that different blockchains will anchor into Bitcoin for additional security, but it's not necessary. So,
I'll take on both of the previous questions. So my view is I don't fully understand what the financial institutions are trying to do with blockchain. It doesn't fully make sense to me at all because, again, to me, the revolutionary aspect of the blockchain is this permissionless value transfer. And the banks have basically become a deputy of their governments to keep track of the value transfer and money transfer. So the proposition that is currently being made to these banks is, well, we have this blockchain, and you can store data on it, and perhaps you can get rid of your back office and your middle office as data storage. And again, I don't see a big advantage of that other than firing a few people that are keeping track of some things. But what I see is happening is that the value transfer that people are now able to do peer-to-peer, and granted, Bitcoin is very volatile. If you hold on to it, the value fluctuates. But the concept of transferring thousands, millions of dollars almost instantly and almost free is a problem for the banks. And what they may be looking to do is they're going to go talking to the government about, well, we have to loosen some of our restraints that we're currently doing on holding and transferring value, like what's happening in the US with the legalization of marijuana. They can't get bank accounts. So now they have to buy these giant vaults and security and hold on to this cash, and then recently one of the big marijuana distributors was kidnapped, and they were trying to extort him for the cash that he has. So these are the kinds of problems that the industry is going to say, well, wait a minute, we have to allow these people to put their cash in our banks. Same thing, because the laws are ramping up, it's harder to move anything. A US person can't open a foreign bank account. So this could be a pushback from the banking industry saying, kind of like what Apple is doing with encryption, saying, hey, we need to provide encryption to our users because otherwise we're going to lose market share. Same thing with the banks. So that's how I see it. And the future for Bitcoin, I'll make this one quick. I see my number one future for Bitcoin is entrepreneurs, especially in socialist countries, a lot in Europe, even like Canada, US, moving their value when they're getting frustrated with the system and they're constantly being taxed and fees and you can't move your value. And when people decide to go and move somewhere else and open businesses, I see them as using Bitcoin as the best conduit to take your money and go because government has technology. You can't get your gold on an airplane. You can't move your money anywhere these days without everybody knowing. And if they don't like it, they just take it. So that's what I see the future of Bitcoin.
Cool. And anybody in the audience have questions for the guys on stage?
For those of us who've been students of the short history of blockchain technology, we know that there's this kind of colloquial distinction between first and second generation blockchain, right? And first generation blockchain was the word that was on the tip of everybody's tongue was innovation, right? The financial applications of blockchain are potentially revolutionary. You're going to see major innovation. The financial system, our very models of finance will be radically overturned
I think that's right, and I think it's the climate. So I still believe that even second-generation blockchains have major disruptive potential. Even Tendermint, the platform that we're creating, can be modified to be permissionless, and compete with Bitcoin in the wild. But we don't talk about that, and we're not selling that because the opportunity today is from financial institutions and financial startups trying to create cost savings using the blockchain. It's just where the opportunity is today.
I think it's just the innovation. By I think the very nature of the blockchain will always be part of it. There's a company called Tendermint. They do the Internet of Things over the blockchain. I think that is a very innovative way to allow tractors that mine, I think specific queries in South America to interact and manage each other. So I don't know if you can really decouple this whole concept of innovation. I think there are tremendous amount of science experiments going on in the market. I remember when Ethereum used to be one of those very high-level experiments, and now you're seeing, the Ethereum blockchain be used by, a number of consortia.
From what I said before, I think it's a waste of time. I think it's like trying to stick a square peg into a round hole. I don't think it'll bring that much efficiency to it. I mean, it's just trying to put everything on a blockchain. Again, I see the revolutionary part as being this permissionless value transfer, and using it as just a database and a notary service. I also see that as problematic. I mean, how many things do right now in Bitcoin, all the transactions are public knowledge, but the actors of those transactions are anonymous. But everything we know about the banking system is the complete opposite. The actors are public, but the transactions are kind of private. So I don't understand what these banks and Wall Street are trying to do, because they're complete opposites of each other. Is JP Morgan is going to go up against another financial institution in trading, and they want these things on a blockchain for everybody to see what the trades are? Again, the concept doesn't make sense to me. I see it more as like a lot of buzzwords. There is new technology, and a lot of them don't understand that the technology part is a term called regulatory arbitrage. If you're not using this new technology of Bitcoin and blockchain to help you to help your business get around current regulations that are stifling your business, then you're probably not using this new technology correctly. And the laws will change to adjust for this regulatory arbitrage that's being created.
You want to take that?
So I will just say that Bitcoin, in its original form and its original intent, works really, really, really well. Of transferring a digital bearer asset around the globe in a trustless environment, no third party. There's a lot of people that are trying to turn it into something that it's not, and trying to turn it into a payment system or something else. And I just don't think that Satoshi thought that he would be competing with Visa when he made the design and concept. Clearly, he's not. That was certainly not the intent, was to compete with current payment systems. And the design and lends to what it does best, and that is to have a digital scarcity that enables you to, in a private way, transact globally without a trusted third party in an irreversible way. And it does that extremely, extremely well. So in short, I think Bitcoin will only get stronger for that particular use case. And then these little b blockchains, again, it's still very, very early. There's a few POCs out there. And we'll learn more about if it truly does create efficiencies. But those efficiencies are basically going to do what they do, which is increase shareholder value. I don't see it necessarily changing mankind for the better.
Can I just add one quick thing to that? People see Bitcoin as this instant, irreversible payments, which it is. That's the digital bearer instrument. But we had the technology. We've had it for 10 to 20 years for financial institutions to do instant, irreversible payments. We have technology to do 1,000 payments a second, like Visa does. If the banks wanted to, they can instantly like transfer value in an irreversible way that you can't get it back. There is nothing revolutionary about instant irreversible payments. It's regulation that has prevented our current banking system to give you instant irreversible payments virtually free, because payments are virtually free. And again, the revolutionary part is the fact that it's permissionless. It's not censored. It can't be stopped. That's the revolutionary part, and a lot of people, I think, tend to miss that.
Guys, let's do one more question, and then.
Dave, I have a question for you. As an entrepreneur, what are you doing today to scale your solution? And when do you think you'll be ready for mass adoption?
We are working with select partners to work on the core. And the core is GPL v3, so you can go ahead and create an application today, a TMSP application. Just contact us and we'll help you. Our plan is to scale it out so everyone can use it.
And the second part, when you see yourself having mass adoption?
About next year, we'll have the platform available so anyone can upload an application to the cloud.
We have to define mass adoption. It's, people refer to the term mass adoption differently. So I don't know what, I don't know if you have another question, but we can go through the panel to see what we think is a definition of mass adoption, but that's a rough question.
Well, actually, we'll do one last question, but short 1-minute answers so we can keep it on time. But if you guys had one piece of advice for the audience or the people watching on the live stream that you want them to stop doing, stop thinking about Bitcoin blockchain, what is your message? But keep it brief, 1 minute, because we're running out of time.
I'll just start it and we can work our way down. Sure. Just keep blockchain and Bitcoin for what it was intended to be. And I've already described what I believe its intent was. And if we try to turn it into something that it's not, it's just not going to work.
My only advice is for those listening and watching, just to be patient. It's a new technology. It's only 7 years in. And for the first 2 years, no one even cared about it. It's still new. It's not going to solve the world's problems tomorrow. Just give it time. I know everyone is complaining that the block size is too small and the transactions are getting clogged. And oh my God, it's taking me an hour or two to clear a transaction. And people that are complaining about that, they're like, well, Visa takes 6 months to clear because there are chargebacks. So just keep in mind of the big picture of what Bitcoin is trying to do with the permissionless value transfer that I've been talking about.
You know, what's amazing about blockchains is that you can have Visa security, immutability, and scale at your fingertips. Anyone can start a blockchain and create a Visa-like network. That's what's innovative. Not that, you know, Visa had before, but it was closed and proprietary. Now it's virtually free. Anyone can start one of these things. So think about what the world will be like when you have, you know, multiple Bitcoin-like blockchains that are even faster. What's that going to look like?
I think one of the most important things I'd like to make sure that I communicate correctly is, if, you know, for anyone or any company looking at blockchain implementations, you know, these are the most important things, is use case. You need to know what your use case is, especially if you want to make it over a public or a private blockchain. So the use case dictates exactly if you should go which route. And, you know, just add a line, we've looked at, you know, the public blockchain is good for trust and transparency. The private blockchains are great working with FIs, you know, and and controlling, you know, information, which is what, you know, we work with the government. And I think the other one I'd like to make sure that you guys know is acceptance. So explaining to a regulator, you know, what a public versus a private blockchain is, it's like, you know, a nuclear physicist explaining to a kindergarten student a very, very high-level concept. So 2 very important things. So first is the use case. Need to know what your use case is. Second is acceptance. How do you explain that to necessary stakeholders?
Cool. Okay, round of applause for the audience. Thank you, guys.